Always Mine by SamadiW. Chapter 16, Part 2. It had been 3 years since he last saw his beautiful, talented witch. He often wondered if she missed him as he missed her, or whether she longed for him as he did for her. Random thoughts plagued his mind. Perhaps she was married with a family of her own. That last thought never sat well with him. It added to the dread and despair. Hermione occupied his thoughts often, and more so after his father's demise. Weeks followed, and Draco forgot about his father. They redecorated the manor, adding so much needed colour and liveliness. With Lucius' death, the darkness that plagued them was washing away. Narcissa resumed her social status. She entertained fundraisers and set up trust funds for underprivileged children. She slowly forgot about her husband too. Draco heard the banging of books, the dusting of cloaks and hurried footsteps. His ears perked up, trying to listen to what the commotion was. What he heard made his heart still. Was it fate giving him another chance, or Potter's carelessness because in 3 years the Chosen One had not mentioned her name once? Harry spoke fast and urgently. "All right, Hermione, I'm leaving now." Draco could hardly contain his excitement and beating heart. Acting impulsively, he picked up his coat and followed Potter at a distance, ensuring to stay hidden. Diagon Alley was crowded, which made following him fairly easy. He hurried his steps to keep up with the ex-Gryffindor. Draco ducked behind a column and watched from afar as Harry approached Ginny and his witch, his love, his everything. Her hair was shorter, less wild. It blew lightly in the wind. She laughed as Ginny smacked Harry on the head and scolded him for running late. Her infectious laugh travelled with the wind and surrounded him. He closed his eyes and leaned towards it. She wore a simple white blouse and a pencil skirt and a red scarf. His ex-girlfriend looked wonderful. He couldn't take his eyes off of her. Draco stared unashamed and openly. He narrowed his eyes as her attention shifted, and she turned around with the brightest smile he had ever seen. What was the source of her happiness? He wordlessly pleaded to Merlin, "Please don't be a fucking man." Draco moved closer. Her presence was like a magnet pulling him to her. He hid behind another column, but with a better view. A beautiful little boy with the most unique blonde hair ran towards her, and that piqued his interest further. The child cried excitedly, "Mama, Mama!" Soft curls of platinum blonde hair fell around his face. Draco stared unblinkingly at the child and felt an unfamiliar tug at his heart. Not out of love for Hermione, but something else, something new. Ron followed the laughing child, holding onto a balloon that resembled a pink elephant with 6 legs. Hermione picked up the beautiful child, hugged him close to her chest, and smothered him in kisses. She twirled him around, and the child squealed in delight. Ron grinned and tied the balloon string firmly around the active toddler's wrist. Draco watched their exchange in fascination, mesmerized by the little boy in her arms. Momentarily his heart sank. She was married and probably to a muggle, but an uncertainty began to rot in the depth of his mind. Boldly he moved forward still. He wanted to breathe the same air as she, just a whiff of her sweet-smelling scent. Draco was close enough to see them clearly. The child turned to face him, and he stared in shock. Frozen in time, staring into a replica of his own piercing grey eyes. Only a Malfoy had those eyes. She felt his presence. Her hold on the child tightened, and she slowly turned to face him. Hermione's face drained of laughter and happiness, and her whole body tensed. She stared at the impeccably dressed man from across the street. He was staring at her son, a look of shock and confusion on his face. Panic surged forward and grabbed her whole. Draco briefly made eye contact with Hermione. His narrowed eyes questioned her, but she disappeared with the child before he could react. Never had she ever cast a concealment charm so quickly. She felt her son's small hands on her face. He was curious as to why she was running for dear life. "Mama?" he questioned in his innocence. Draco looked around wildly and crossed the street hurriedly. He bared his teeth and groaned in frustration. Fuck! She disappeared into thin air. Probably cast a charm and fled. The cafe they frequented was deserted. Hermione preferred it that way, since she kept a low profile, always away from curious eyes and unwanted glances. Once inside, she lifted a charm, and her friends looked at her in alarm. "Hermione, what happened?" Ginny got to her feet and asked quickly in concern. Ron reached over and took the little boy from her hands, and Hermione bent over, holding her sides, gasping for air. Breathless, she tried to speak. "Draco! Malfoy! Outside!" She nervously looked at the entrance to see if Draco had followed her. Satisfied that he hadn't, she slid into the booth beside Ron. The child was highly taken by the funny faces Ron made and giggled uncontrollably. Ginny and Harry exchanged an exhausted look. Ginny cleared her throat and pointed discreetly at the toddler, squealing in delight. "Don't you think it was time that Draco found out about, you know?" Harry nodded in agreement and leaned closer. "Ryan looks just like Malfoy. The resemblance is uncanny." Hermione banged her small fist on the table and angrily regarded her friends. She hissed, "No! He abandoned us, and I won't let him take Ryan from me." Harry's voice was stern but cautious. "I hardly think Malfoy will try to take Ryan from you." Ginny added, looking concerned, "He didn't even know you were pregnant." Hermione let out a sarcastic laugh. "I don't believe this. He left me without reason, and I'm supposed to turn up at his doorstep and tell him about Ryan?" She shook her head stubbornly. "No, we've been fine without him." Ron rolled his eyes. "Yeah, because how you live is fine. You closed yourself off from the world." Tickled Ryan's tummy, but added seriously, "You can pretend Malfoy doesn't exist, but that doesn't make him go away." They stopped what they were doing and openly stared at Ron. He hardly ever offered sensible input. Put his hands up exacerbatedly. "What is true?" Leaned forward and whispered, "If I knocked up my girlfriend in school, I will want to know about it, despite what the bloody hell will happen afterwards." "Stop staring at me. You all know I'm right." Ron shot at the trio, staring at him in disbelief. Ginny started a laugh. "Never thought I would agree with him." Harry squeezed Hermione's hand and advised, "Just think about it." She would do no such thing, but she rolled her eyes and retorted, "Fine, I'll think about it." Draco made the walk back to his office in a daze. His head was in absolute turmoil. Who was that little boy, and why did he look just like him? Could it be? No, it was impossible. Surely Hermione would have told him. He sat down and stared into nothingness. The loud voice of Ron Weasley cut through his thoughts. Potter could be trusted. Draco had come to respect the man that was Harry Potter greatly. Unfortunately, he was yet to share the same sentiment about Weasley. The fucker was still an enormous prat. Draco got to his feet, stepped out, and asked, "Potter, can I have a word?" Harry looked at Ron uncomfortably. Shit. Here we go. But maybe it was for the best. Hermione could be so stubborn at times. He walked into Draco's small office and sat down, but before the ice blonde could speak, Harry raised a hand to cut him off mid-sentence. "Malfoy, I know you saw Hermione today, and if that's what you want to talk about, I'm sorry, but I can't." Harry closed his mouth and asked curiously, "I just wanted to know if she was married. I saw her son." Harry shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Oh, no. She's not married." Draco was a highly skilled occlumen, but he would never use it on Potter or anyone else to suit his needs, no matter how tempting. Harry leaned back from the penetrating stare, of the man before him and regarded him curiously. Draco sighed and muttered, "Thanks, Potter." Harry nodded, hurriedly left the room, and plopped onto his seat. Ron raised a questioning eyebrow, but Harry rolled his eyes and returned to his paperwork. Later that night, Draco met with Blaise and Theo at a leaky cauldron. "Wow, you saw Granger?" Theo almost spat out his fire whiskey. "She wasn't alone," Draco told him, still shocked at what he had witnessed. Blaise leaned back. "So, who was she with?" "She has a son." Draco stared into his drink and declared slowly. Theo spat out his drink this time. "Oh, shit." Blaise was thoughtful. "Was there a husband?" Draco shifted uncomfortably. "Not that I saw, but..." Blaise narrowed his eyes, and Theo listened intently. "The boy looks like me," Draco blurted out before his confidence deserted him completely. Theo and Blaise exchanged grave looks. "Come on, mate. Granger would have told you," Blaise said, being the voice of reason. "I don't know. We didn't exactly part on the best of terms," Draco told his friends miserably. He remembered the cruel way he had broken up with her. Theo snorted. That was the understatement of the century. A few hours later they parted ways, and Draco was still deep in thought. If anyone knew the truth, it would be Potter. Despite Potter's warning about not discussing Hermione, Draco decided to ask. This was too important to let pass. He had to fucking know. To be continued. Thank you for listening to this part of Always Mine by SamadiW. We have only one more chapter left in this series until this book is done. I really hope you enjoyed it and you will stick around for the last chapter. I'm super excited to share it. It will be a happy ending, so don't be scared. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button. It really helps me out and shows me that you like my content and motivates me to continue doing it. So I will see you next chapter.